Sackboy. I just knocked Sackboy down. My little Sackboy.
Oh, here.
His little arm is, look at this. Poor little guy. His little arm is just hanging by a thread.
You should fix him.
I don't know how. I wish I could fix you. I wish I could fix you.
I'm sure you could ask
Poor
Jen
guy.
for tips.
This is the limit. Jen is like, I will not do this.
She's like, no. All right, enough. Enough already with your nonsense. You are 41 years old. I'm not going to stitch together your stuffed animals for your video games, you dork. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the JRPG Pursuit Podcast, your podcast for all things JRPGs. I'm Branden.
I'm Abdallah.
And I'm Emily.
And we are so thrilled to have you join us today to talk about our favorite subject, which is JRPGs. Well, I mean, I guess it's debatable. I don't want to speak for everybody, but it's certainly my favorite subject.
It's okay.
They're fine. Yeah, take them or leave them, you know. But we have a topic for you today that is timely, we think, because we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation 2 this year. I remember those days 25 years ago, bringing home that big blue box, busting it out. And I think the first game I played was The Bouncer. So right away, you knew you were in for greatness.
It
was greatness.
It was fine. It was cool at the time.
The character models or the character design for that was just peak.
Very
like
Nomura. Yeah.
So good.
It was a game for sure. But anyway, we were thinking that this would be a fun topic to revisit, maybe on a monthly sort of cadence, look at a particular console and talk about the games we love, the games that we missed, but would like to make time for, underrated gems, things of that nature. So look forward to that. Also, real quick, just want to thank all the members of the channel who are listening/watching. We really appreciate you. It means a lot that you show us that support. So thank you. Anyway, let's dive in. Why don't we? Let's talk about the PlayStation 2. This is what many people consider to be like one of the golden eras, at least, of JRPGs. So who wants to kick us off?
Honestly. Like, I feel like the PS2 was just so groundbreaking in many ways.
It was the last time, at least in my eyes, where we had a foundation shifting change between console generations, right? You go from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation, and it's like, wow, 3D, CG graphics, whatever. Very cool, right? And then you go from the PlayStation 1 with the blocky, cloud with his triangle hair
icons.
Or whatever to the PlayStation 2, and you're like, oh my gosh, could it possibly look any better? And the answer is, well, not really, because every subsequent generation has just been kind of smaller, incremental changes. It's a big deal. Like it was a big deal for gaming in general, and it's a lot of people's favorite console generation, I think, for good reason.
Yeah, I definitely have fond memories for the PS2. It was my first ever home console, so definitely was one in the books for me.
So maybe we should kick it off with some of the more obvious games, just to highlight them briefly. Final Fantasy made its way onto the PlayStation 2 in Final Fantasy X, starring Meg Ryan. And if you're listening to this and not watching, the visual helps drive that point home. But Titus, I said
I never thought about that, Branden. Why have you done this to me?
Does resemble late 90s era Meg Ryan to
it's
an
exactly her hair. Like I'm picturing the
feathered hair.
Oh my god. No. That's it.
Is that what they wanted this game to be remembered for, though? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not. I'm guessing. But now I don't know. That's all I'm going to think about now.
Elementary school me wanted to have feathered hair. So.
Oh, yeah.
That was all the big rage.
That was the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy X was a pretty remarkable experience for me. And Emily, I think you said you played a little bit of it.
I got to the blitzball part, and then I kind of dropped it.
Okay, so that's what is that, Dalla? Like maybe like a third of the way or something.
Yeah, that's
Ish.
like
25% maybe for generous.
Yeah.
not too long after you end up in Spira. So
no, I was playing with my brother, and we were just so frustrated by that mini game.
It is a very frustrating mini game at the time, especially for like if you were younger playing that.
Yeah.
Well, and you're coming off of a string of really fantastic Final Fantasy mini games, right? You got Triple Triad and 8, and then Tetramaster, which I wasn't as crazy about, but I know has fans out there in 9, and then
the jump rope in
Blitzball.
9.
The what?
The jump rope in 9.
The jump rope mini game, yeah. Where you jump 100 times or whatever and get something silly.
Yeah.
I was not good at that. But yeah, to go from those, I was going in expecting a similar kind of card game, and I got sort of a card game, but it's underwater soccer, turn-based combat, which is strange.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
I also was never a huge fan of playing Blitzball. Final Fantasy X, I think was the first time you actually got to experience like just like the graphical like epicness mixed with like an epic story. So it was a very like
I remember the cutscenes. Like I was really enamored by it because that was my second Final Fantasy game at the time, and I wanted to love it. But we eventually, I think, traded it to GameStop after hitting that wall with the blitzball.
Yeah. I mean, you sounds like you gave it a fair shot, though. You got it that far into it.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been wanting to go back to it because now I feel like I could do it. At the time, I was like,
Well, the nice thing about the blitzball thing, too, is you don't have to win or be good at it. Like, if you lose, the game just proceeds, and they have that. It's an optional mini game, right? You can continue. You can like do the whole season and like play different teams or whatever. And I think there's goodies that you can get if you are successful. But like, I never did that. I was like, I hate this stupid mini game so much.
I know.
Just them introducing that. The pacing of the game just kind of fell off for me, and so I lost interest.
I mean, it sucked the wind out of your sails, right? Like that can happen, and when that happens, it's hard to get that back. So
exactly.
But yeah, with 10, they made some pretty significant changes, not just graphically, although obvious, the graphical changes were huge. They switched back to a turn-based, like strictly turn-based battle system. Which in my opinion is like, I think the best almost the best the combat's ever been. I don't know.
Yeah. I really love the combat system for that.
Yeah.
Just being able to switch out your characters on the fly and just like, it was very fast paced turn based. So like, it was really fun.
Yeah. And being able to, it was conditional turn based. So like you could do things that would affect the turn order and stuff too. So, it wasn't turn based in the sense of like NES era. Everybody inputs their commands up front and then the system takes over. But
exactly,
like just very cool. The story was moving and just like beautiful. I don't know, it was just really really rewarding to finish that game. I think it was the first Final Fantasy that made me shed a tear in the end. So it was a very moving game. I really enjoyed the story of 10. And then, we can't talk about Final Fantasy X without talking about Final Fantasy X-2.
Yep.
10-2. A lot of people say X2, and I don't understand that because it is the sequel to 10, so it is 10-2. It was... I'm going to tell this story.
Makes me think of Wolverine 2. I don't know. Or X-Men 2.
X-Men 2, Wolverine.
X-Men 2,
Yeah. When I
say Cross 2.
Cross 2. That's how they might say it in Japan, yeah. When I went to GameStop to pre-order, I don't even know if it was GameStop. Was it still was Babbage's still a thing back then, or
there was Electronic Boutique, I think, still. Well, I think
what's
GameStop
the one that
was just coming around at that point.
Yeah, I think it may have been over. I think it may have been Babbage's for me down. I lived in North Carolina at the time, and I went in to pre-order the game, and they're like, "Oh, you want to pre-order Final Fantasy X?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. I played Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm really excited to play the next one, naturally, X. That's I was just like, you're supposed to be the expert. You're the guy behind the counter. Made
Read
me very upset.
Roman numerals correctly.
I know.
Please.
But anyway, there's not a whole lot that I get pretentious about, but for some reason that's something that I'm very pretentious about.
You will die on that hill.
So, and people are probably like, Branden, you're pretentious about a lot of things. What are you talking about? But Final Fantasy X-2 is actually like kind of an underrated gem, I would say, in a lot of ways. It's corny, right? It's got like the introduction of like pop music into Final Fantasy, which not really the introduction of it, right? Like since 8, we've had pop music as part of it. Yeah. But we haven't had a character in a mini skirt dancing and singing in Final Fantasy until X-2. J-pop concert going on.
Yeah.
But I think the battle system in X-2, even if I don't like it quite as much as 10's, I think it's the best implementation of the active time system that they've ever done, personally.
Yeah. I love that the outfits change depending on what you're in, what kind of like can't think of words right now. But
the job system is basically based on your dress, the dress sphere or whatever, right? Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like it's cool. It's like they brought back that idea of like class systems, which you haven't seen, quite a few games there. Like I feel like that game got a lot of hate initially, but I think it's also came around a lot more than any other game that's had a lot.
Yeah, its reputation has
improved.
improved.
Like this is the trend though with recent Final Fantasy. Like there's usually a lot of vitriol and hate because it's so new, right? And a little bit different from what the main line was at that point.
Right.
But then people kind of recognize how it was actually pretty good after a while.
Yeah, the hardest of hardcore series fans, I feel like, are always, not always, but often the hardest on a new entry, and then it
resistant to change,
time.
I think.
Yeah,
and then definitely.
Yeah. Did you zoom in?
No, it added effect. I like that.
Is that me?
I mean, I don't know. Like your camera zoomed in. I thought.
Oh no!
I don't know if you did that on purpose.
I did not do that on purpose.
I think I think it was what you were saying, that like the camera felt
the camera was like it was like she's making a really salient point. Zoom in. Let's get in there.
Let's get right
dramatic.
Usually
zoom.
It's like if you do a hand gesture, it changes. But
I don't know if mine does that or if I have it turned off. But
I turned mine off, so I don't know why I did that. Like I saw it blinking, and that's usually a signal that something's up. But I'm blind without my glasses here, so.
Anyway, Emily, what's a game that you want to highlight?
Oh, if we were going to continue with Final Fantasy, I was going to mention 12, which was my first Final Fantasy.
Yes.
And speak about games that got a lot of hate when they came out. At least I'm assuming I didn't really keep up with mainstream media when it came to video games at the time.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. It just was, I think, the first like high fantasy game I ever played that I felt like I was like part of a fantasy world. So it was very immersive for me and like cool. And I loved the airships and just all the different environments you got to like have this like open map, to when you do like your bounties or you're battling, things just on the screen at the time. But it was that weird hybrid of a... What do they like to call 12's combat system? I know they like to have it's a gambit system, but to explain it to those who haven't played it, you get to queue in all of your different commands ahead of time so that when you approach an enemy, your party basically knows what to do. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that at the time.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit disappointed with how the story went, but overall, it was, I think, a fun experience.
Yeah. I think that game, like, it got a lot of... It wasn't, like, a lot of initial hate. I think a lot of people...
Really?
Yeah, like, I feel like it was people liked it.
It's so different, right? I felt like that would have been a lot of hate at the beginning.
Like,
there was
definitely hate.
There was a spirit, though, back then of, like, experimentation, and people, I feel, were just a little more comfortable with the idea of doing different things. And so I don't know.
Had exposure too during that era because PS2 was so experimental.
Yeah. Like I remember, I wasn't playing games as much back then, but I was still like aware of what was happening in the space. And I don't remember a ton of hate initially. I think there was some criticisms of some of the choices, but like not the sort of hate that you see like when a Final Fantasy 15 or a Final Fantasy 16 comes out today. It was more measured, and like there was, I think more of a willingness to go along with changes and things. To the
and it was coming off of 11 too, so maybe people were just happy to find the single player experience instead of an MMO.
Yeah, right. I couldn't play 11. I didn't have the capacity to have a $15 or $20 a month subscription to a game. That seems crazy to me, but
And at the time, like coming off of like, there's a lot of hate around X2 because of just like the shift in tonal like the tonal X2 in X2.
He's just subconsciously driving the knife into my heart.
I'm just gonna make
twisted.
I'm gonna make Branden slowly lose his mind throughout this episode of just slowly referencing that over and over and over again. For 10-2, so basically, like there was a lot of like just tonal shifts in that, which I think is a very outwardly like people just like will automatically not like it. Whereas I think 12 kept the tone of Final Fantasy. Like it actually harkens back to the older Final Fantasy. It's very like high fantasy. You've got this like really fun open world that you can do. I know the battle system was very much contentious, like with it not being true turn-based, but I think MMOs were really popular during that phase. So like,
That's true.
It was starting to like bleed across the lines of like people who are into MMOs wanting to try this out, but also those who love turn-based a little turned off by it. So it was a weird time. It was a weird game, and I know the story did not live up to everybody's liking.
Yeah. Well, the one other interesting thing about 12 is that it's the first and so far only Final Fantasy game, like mainline Final Fantasy game, to use a pre-existing fantasy world to set it, right? Like it takes place in Ivalice, which has been the setting of Final Fantasy Tactics and Vagrant Story and a couple other games, I think. So, coming in with sort of an established lore, like for Final Fantasy, that was kind of experimental, right? Like for any other game series, that would be considered the norm. But Final Fantasy was all about every time it was a completely new,
self-contained,
unseen world, self-contained story. For 12 to kind of step in and use this pre-existing world was kind of a change at the time, which I actually thought was really cool. I was excited for it personally.
Me too.
And you have all those crossover things too. Like I think when they ported Tactics to the PSP, right? They had some of the Final Fantasy 12 characters playable.
They're able to fill in some gaps there. So 12 is a really cool game. I've heard the Zodiac Age version is much more well liked nowadays, just because of the changes they made to the class system, like how the class system works or whatever, the license board.
Skill tree probably. Because there was like a way to, if you weren't like prepared to, I guess, grind a bunch or whatnot, I think there was some skewness right in some of the systems towards the end game.
Yeah. So 12 is one of those games that like I really want to go back and give a fair shot to as an older adult. I was technically an adult when it came out, but I was basically a kid. So I'd like to go back and give it a more of a fair shot as a grown up, and see if it's.
I'd be surprised to see how it takes to you.
Yeah.
As a grown up.
Yeah.
And I think
I'd like it more.
I almost feel like I would. I'm a little more open to those sorts of like political machinations. They're not my favorite type of story, but like I'm more open to it than I think I was at the time. So
because I liked it a lot, but I would like to see all the different changes that they made for just the systems in there, because there was a lot of things that were just a little like monotonous and or like grindy at the time. That like
I forgot to hold it up.
I forgot to grab that, but so I'm excited to play the remastered version of it and see how that goes. So it's on my list of one day replaying.
One day we'll get to it.
there's going to be a lot in that discussion today of a lot of one day replaying.
Yeah.
Well, should we continue on with Square Enix?
Sure.
Yeah.
So another big PS2 era game, right, was the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 games.
Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts.
And we've talked about Kingdom Hearts quite a bit on the podcast already, but I guess to kick it off, it was one of the most kind of unique JRPGs that we've seen a blend of Western influence, I would say, but these really recognizable IPs with the kind of Japanese style gameplay. Mm-hmm. So at the time, as a kid who wasn't that exposed to many JRPGs at the time, other than like Pokemon, I loved it. I thought it was so fun, and it was so beautiful too because of all the cutscenes. And I think when you first boot up the game and you have, the theme song playing, it was just such a magical experience for me.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny because like that's straight up J-pop, and the fact that like people are obsessed with Utada Hikaru's like songs
Still
from Kingdom Hearts, but like
so good.
X2, you see what I did there, Branden?
I see what you did.
You're just gonna purposely do it now.
No.
I see you.
No. Anyways, so yeah, like it's just funny to see how like that shift between whatever the J-pop from 10-2 getting such backlash to like the nostalgia
being
and
so
love
totally embraced
for like Kingdom Hearts version. I mean, granted, you're not having the characters dance around, but like
I would also say feel
a different
free to,
audience too, right?
Feel free to roast me in the comments if you disagree with me, but I also feel like Simple and Clean is just a much better song than What Can I Do for Letter U, or however it was written.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Catchy.
Like it was, it's not I'm not saying it's a bad song. I just think Simple and Clean I don't know, worked better for me personally.
Utada Hikaru is just a better
She's very
singer.
good.
Like she's just better in general. Good. So like a lot of stuff she does gets like between that and Sanctuary from Kingdom Hearts 2.
Love that song.
I didn't even know they were J-pop at the time because it was in English, so I just thought it was just a really good song. Yeah. And this is coming off of like when Evanescence was really big too, that era. So I always equated it something like that personally.
That's funny.
As a kid.
Yeah.
Just so much like over the top vocals that I don't know, had a cleanness to it.
It's true. Yeah.
Music to the ears.
Yes.
I think it was just something that came out of left field. Like when this was announced, like people were just like, wait, what? Like Disney, Squaresoft at the time, like coming together to make something. Like I know I was just like, what? I've got to try this. And I like as a kid, I was like, I think it's my, I talked about this before, but it's my first game I actively went out and pre-ordered
yourself,
like myself. So like it's pretty epic. I loved it at the time. Despite the craziness that it's become, it still holds a lot of like nostalgic feel to me.
Yeah, I want to say it was one of my breakup games? I went through a bad breakup.
Interesting connotation there.
Went through a bad breakup when I was like 18, and I think that was around when that came out.
Nothing saves you from a breakup like some sweet goofy.
It was
Goofy whispers.
It was Goofy and Donald. It was what got me through that breakup was Kingdom Hearts and the first season of Dawson's Creek on DVD on repeat, baby. Just going through it. I was going through it.
Nothing says early 2000s like that. Oh man.
Oh, it's funny, but it is very sad.
That's why we laugh now.
It is desperately sad. No, I mean, now it's sad. Like, wow, what a sad thing that I did. Why did I watch Dawson's Creek over and over? Never beyond season 1 either. Just season 1. I don't know what any of those characters. I don't know where did life take them? I don't know.
So you probably just needed more breakups through life, so that way.
I only had the one real big breakup, so I don't.
There you go. So like,
there you go.
You didn't need Dawson's Creek. You only needed it for one season. It was there for you, and then
I got what I needed. It
did its thing. Yeah,
provided its service, and
we are now a Dawson's Creek podcast.
Pacey, man. You think about Pacey sometimes.
Next podcast episode, we'll be watching episode 4, season 2. Watch along with us. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyway, I don't even know where to. Oh, we were talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
Yeah, so that came out at kind of a weird time for me, but I really resonated with it. And, having played all the Final Fantasies up to that point, like being able to see the characters in it was just extra cool. I was just like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
Like go to Twilight Town and talk to all these, characters. I was mad that they translated it Aerith and not Eris. Because I was a Eris purist for a long time. Now I don't care, but like at the time I was like, you don't got to retranslate her name. Like we already have it as Eris. Like you don't need to. Don't do that.
You're showing your elitist again.
Yeah,
I love that.
At the time, I was pretty mad about it. Like I said, now I don't care. Aerith is fine, whatever. But that bugged me. That bugged me at the time. But it was great. I think it was Mandy Moore played Aerith. I want to or Eris. Aerith?
I think yeah. And it wasn't it Sora was voiced by. Was it Jonathan Taylor Thomas or
no? He's
it was
to this day. He's I See Dead People.
It's that kid. Yes. What is it? Yeah, he was another. Yeah, what was his name? I can't remember.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, he's still voicing Sora. He's a fully 40-year-old man. He's still voicing Sora. I don't know if he's 40. He's in his late 30s though. Still doing it.
Good for him.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Good for him. It's job security right there.
Lance Bass was Sephiroth. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That just makes me laugh. But yes. Yeah. That's awesome.
Strange casting, but he was Sephiroth.
There was some really random casting. There's more to it. There's more as well. I just can't remember all of them.
Yeah. But great. Just, man, the only thing I wasn't crazy about in the first Kingdom Hearts was the gummy ship stuff. Like, I felt
actually enjoyed that.
I didn't mind those.
They weren't
collectathons.
Yeah, they weren't like game breaking for me or anything. I just wasn't crazy about it. I feel like the way they did it in Kingdom Hearts 2, they really improved the gummy ship mechanics and made it a lot more fun for me. So I liked that quite a bit more.
And what's nice too is you did it once, you don't have to redo it again.
You've cleared the way to the
yeah. It was like a fun little like side thing. That was fine. It was good.
Yeah.
And kind of like the PS2 era, I mostly associate with platformers, and so I felt like it was almost like a platformer mini game for me, where you had to collect things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we were talking off mic before the show about how the PS2 kind of saw the end of a lot of series, and obviously that's not the case for Kingdom Hearts. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm like, one other thing that the PlayStation 2 did was it kind of began a transition. I'm trying to think how to put this to some kind of more modern game design ideas. You know what I'm saying? Like the combat in Kingdom Hearts, for example, was pretty unique for the time. Like you have obviously run around, jump, attack and stuff like you would see in any action RPG, but then you had some kind of light menuing that you would do simultaneously in real time for magic or whatever, right? And
or it would stop time so you could switch
slow
things
down,
on the fly.
right? And I think that like we wouldn't have a lot of modern action RPG combat systems without Kingdom Hearts. I think Kingdom Hearts kind of was foundational
in the JRPG space. I agree.
For that sort of design sensibility. Some of it's just, you could say it's just Nomura. Like you look at the Final Fantasy VII remake games and it's like, okay, yeah, this is similar to Kingdom Hearts in a lot of ways. It could be his influence on his own work, but I think even more broadly, it holds up.
Yeah, and I think it brought that to more mainstream people, right? The token hack and slash kind of gameplay. You don't have to play it hack and slash, but I think most people kind of did.
Yeah, and there's other
At least I did as a
like,
kid.
Yeah.
And other games, like even on the PS2, we'll probably touch on later, that got like some sort of influence in that like action styled RPG. Kind of similar, like battle mechanics to this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because there was definitely like action RPGs prior to Kingdom Hearts, of course.
Yeah.
In the JRPG space, but I do feel like that was a shift to seeing more of them, maybe.
Yeah.
In the space and more refined mechanics rather than just button mashing, if you will.
Yeah, they were a lot more simple. You think of like the Super Nintendo era, like Soul Blazer or Illusion of Gaia, games like that.
Or like early E's.
Yeah, early E's games. I mean,
the bump
fun,
mechanic.
Great games, but like, they were not as complex or as rewarding as Kingdom Hearts and like later action RPGs would be. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I think
it's also, I think,
Kingdom Hearts a lot.
Sign of the technology, though. Like, since there's more ways to make it interesting rather than like what the system was kind of capable at the time and how you could design around that.
Yeah. Even just something as simple as having an analog stick and a directional pad makes a big difference because you're controlling your character with the stick and then you control menus with the directional pad, right? Like it's, just a function of having a different kind of controller. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's even the evolution of just that, like the actual like controller and system and things like that actually played into that. So, and
cool. The PlayStation, technically the DualShock came out on, during the original PlayStation's lifespan, but the PlayStation 2 standardized it, right? Like there weren't any non-DualShock controllers for the PlayStation 2. And there's a reason that every controller made after that has basically used that style. They've maybe arranged things a bit differently. Xbox and Nintendo like the non-symmetrical stick setup, fine, whatever. But basically all of the functionality of those controllers has been used by everybody else ever since, because, and like that, I think owed in large part to the fact that the PlayStation 2 was so successful and kind of proved itself right in the market. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree, because a lot of controllers before then were pretty experimental, or they try to go for more, I guess, aesthetics rather than function. So I think the DualShock definitely was kind of a blend of the two. It made it just such an iconic shape that people just associate with gaming now. Because when you see like gaming emojis or something, it's always kind of it looks like a DualShock controller.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Kingdom Hearts?
I'm good. I think
we've talked about it quite extensively on the podcast, so I think we could maybe highlight some other games.
Yeah.
Which ones do you guys want to bring up?
What do you got, Dalla? You got anything?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to go, I know we've been talking about the earlier side of the PS2 era, but I'm going to go right at the end for Square Enix.
Okay.
Like after they are now Square Enix. And I'm going to want to bring up Radiata Stories.
Yes.
I'm trying to see if I have even the receipt in here for when I bought it. No, I don't. I'm trying to remember when I bought this. But this was a game that, like, I don't think people know about it. It's like, it's popular in the JRPG space, but not enough people talk about it, just because, like, at the time it was at the end of the PS2's life cycle. And it didn't sell particularly a ton. It's not a very expensive game either. So like anyone who does want to pick it up, it's pretty relatively cheap. I think it's maybe like around 30, 40, $50 at this point. I don't know if it's changed. I haven't checked lately. But it is a kind of, it's an action RPG in the sense of you go into a battle, though. It's not like you're not fighting,
on the map.
On the map itself.
Screen, yeah.
You have a separate screen. But it also has it harkens to Suikoden in a sense, where you can basically recruit a bunch of people. I don't remember exactly how many people you could recruit in this one. I know it's like over 100.
It's basically like everybody in that town, right? Am I remembering that right?
You can, and it's like you're building out your own, like, kind of like how you do in Suikoden 2 as well. It's like you're building out your own, like, a rebel alliance or whatever. This congregation of all these people that will do different things and open up shops and all sorts of things within your town that you create. And so it's like really fun.
So it's town building through people.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can miss a lot of them, like in Suikoden. So you just gotta figure out like who you can talk to at certain times of day as well, because there's day and night cycles. And then there's also like interesting thing about this game is that at some point in the game it has you choose a side to pick for the game, because like it's like a fairies versus humans kind of situation, and so you choose which one you're going to align with. So it gives you the option to replay the game or save before that scene, and so you can go back and replay the game from that scene and experience it just slightly different and with more things. And so I thought like this was just such a fun game. The characters, it was a little bit like the story was good. It did not take itself seriously at all. Like it had a lot of like silly slapstick moments happening throughout the game, but it looked beautiful. Like it's one of those games that like I think would benefit from a remaster because it would be an easy game to just touch up and upscale to like 4K, and it would just hold because it's very like it's a very it's the art style is very like interesting. It's kind of like a drawn in almost art style. Like
they're 3D models, but they kind of look like the texture mapping looks like it's hand. Yeah,
it looks like it's just like sketched almost. Like you can see like the line sketches in it as well. And like it's very interesting. It's a very cool like aesthetic, and I love the look of this game. The music was good. The gameplay was fun. It's just one of those games I like just want to always highlight, and I like to bring it up just because it's not one that people talk about a lot, but deserves a bit more. And I would love to see a remaster.
Yeah, I feel like it's one that people are aware of, but a lot of people haven't played it. So I think a remaster would be a great benefit. So more people have the opportunity if they don't want to hook up their PS2.
Exactly.
Even though if the game is relatively cheap, it's just hard sometimes on modern like televisions and things to play. Back on the old PS2.
True.
It's not easy to hook up, especially if it's action combat, like hooking up a PS2 to your 4K TV or even HD TV. There's going to be that input lag problem. And it's not
and also it's hard with the like just the general PS2 jank at the time.
Exactly, because like
we're so used to not having that.
A lot of these games I think were 480i. So the way the way CRTs would show 480i content, because of the scan lines, because of how it was built and the technology, it doesn't look. It looks much better. It smooths things out. It makes things nice looking. Great. On an HD TV, like when you play this, it is rough because it's not meant for that. So that's like the benefit of having it remastered is that they can fix that up, clean it up. And
have you played the PS2? Well, there's only the PS2 version. Have you played it on a original model PS3?
Oh, I think I've started it once just to test it to see. I should try it though.
I'm just curious how it looks, if like what the PS3 would do to PS2 games, because like that was the beginning of the HD era, and you know they had to have accounted for that somehow, at least for the input lag. I don't know that it's going to look as good, but you know, I would hope that they would have accounted for that.
Input lag would be a little bit better, but I think the input lag in general on an HD TV or like 4K, I think it depends on the screen you have too. So like every person's mileage will be different based off of that. So. But I imagine it would look halfway decent. It would play decently. I think it would play fine. It would look okay. Like I think the PS3 does a good job of more or less playing PS2 games on a screen. But how many people have the original Fat Boy PS3?
That still works.
And those
still
things
works.
Yeah. There's a lot of them have overheating problems and.
The yellow, the PS3 had the yellow light of death, or I forget. There's something similar to the red ring of death that the PlayStation 3 would get. It's just like, well, you're cooked. You can't. This is dead.
It's unfortunate.
That's why I've been resistant to pick up a PS3, even though there's games on that system I'd like to own. It's
like they're getting old enough where a lot of the CPU, what do you call it? The stuff they put on the CPU for cooling.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
The paste.
The cooling paste or whatever.
Thermal paste or whatever.
Thermal paste, yes. Words are escaping me today.
Hard.
Words are hard. But yes, so the thermal paste is getting real old at this point. So it's not, a lot of PS3s don't need to kind of get that redone. And that is not, like if you're not good at taking things apart and like, working with certain things, like, there's a lot of risk that comes up with tinkering with it. Like you can break your PS3, so it's
not a tinkerer.
So we need remasters.
There's
not
a
lot
of like places you could send systems anymore, right? Like a local place.
You gotta know a guy.
Yeah. You gotta do some research online and find people who are still doing that from the retro world. And that itself is not going to be cheap too. So you have to account for that cost. So,
blah.
But that's more of a reason why we need to see games like this remastered.
I agree.
I love, like, did you guys ever play Radiata Stories? I know, like, Emily, you didn't play a lot of like these games, but like, Branden, have you?
I missed it entirely. Like, I think I was vaguely aware that it existed at the time. But like I said, that PS2, especially the end of the PS2 era into the beginning of the PS3 era, was like my blackout time where I was not playing as many games. So
Same.
Just missed it.
I was playing MMOs. Or Wolfenstein multiplayer.
Oh
yeah.
I played a lot of MMOs back in the day too. So
yeah,
I remember those days.
So yeah, it's sitting on my shelf with looking at me with puppy dog eyes every now and then. I look at it and I'm like, well, I should probably play this, and I have not yet. Yeah, one of these days I'll pop it in and give it a run. Hopefully though, I mean, it'd be great if we got a remaster. Speaking of remasters, I figured, we've talked a lot about Square Enix. I wanted to talk about a couple of games from Atlas. So, well, I guess 3 games. So, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, so SMT3, was a PlayStation 2 game recently, within the last couple of years, had a remaster on, the remastered version on the Switch and PS4. And it's a phenomenal experiential sort of game. Like, SMT is kind of classically viewed as like being hardcore, like pretty difficult games, and that's true. They are challenging, grindy kind of experiences, but SMT Nocturne, man, it was just like on the because I played it. I haven't played the remaster. I have it, but I haven't played the remaster. I played the original, and man, just the vibes of that game are so cool. Like it's like, it feels lonely. Like, it's, I don't know, like, it's just, it's very interesting how, and it looks so good too. Like, they went with a really simple art style. But this is a testament to not just Atlas, but to the PlayStation 2, that it can take, that what they put into it and give us this game that's like, when I heard that they were remastering, I was like, they don't even need to. Like, just port it. Just port it and put it out, because like, it already looks so good. It's just a beautiful, brilliant game. It's got music by Shoji Meguro from Persona, and it's a vibe for sure. I don't know if either of you guys have played Nocturne.
Not yet. I meant to play the remaster, but there's been so many remasters lately, it's hard to keep up.
It is.
I've never played the remaster. I played the original. I have it on the PS2, and I played it back when it came out. Love that game. It was, like you said, very hard. Got my butt kicked plenty.
How long did it take you both to do the Matador?
So many. I had fought that thing so many times. I don't know how I beat it, honestly. Like, I was grinding, but it didn't seem like it mattered. But 50 times, I don't know, probably not 50, but like a lot, dozens of times.
I remember being miserable trying to get through that. So
that's why they remastered it, so it's not so hard.
They put an easier mode in there, so you don't have to fight the Matador dozens of times.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Good, smart move.
But it was a very like you said, like, the artistic design was incredible. It was very simple, but like very effective, and it made you feel like it was desolate, like, because like it's such that's like part of the theme of the game. Like, it's the feeling that you're supposed to get as you're going through this world. Post-apocalyptic kind of weird situation.
They do such a good job at creating atmosphere, like in all those games, and making you feel so isolated, but like on the edge of your seat, because you don't know what's going to pop up right around the corner.
Exactly. So
it's almost like it's very horror-esque. Like, it's very adjacent to horror, which gives you that same feeling.
Yeah, SMT is very horror adjacent. I would agree. Yeah. And and this is not to really. I guess I'm kind of taking a swing at modern Atlas games a little bit. But like, the beauty of SMT Nocturne is just very simple, understated, vibey sort of graphical presentation. I can't play a modern Atlas game without 5 million particle effects flying in my face all the time, and like kind of a vignette sort of thing around the screen that kind of like minimizing the amount of viewable area I have. Like I'm playing Metaphor right now and I love it. It's great. But like sometimes I'm like, I wish that there wasn't all this stuff flying around the screen all the time so I could just see the environments and stuff. Like I feel like nowadays they're leaning a little too heavily on the power of the system to maybe cover up some of the less impressive elements of the graphics. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, they just kind of made that work for them, you know? And I kind of miss that. Is what I'm getting at.
I think they also lean really heavily on stylish like UI to also distract you away from some of the graphical fidelity that they've been using. And
recently. They are masters of UI for sure. I love
it's beautiful.
I love their UI. But I just, I really miss that old school PS2 era Atlas where it's just gorgeous just based on how it's designed and not, you know, all this other stuff.
Yeah. I think sometimes they need to learn that like less is more with certain things.
It really is.
Especially from like an SMT perspective, or like if they're like, I get why Persona is the way it is, and Persona is always going to be kind of like very big, like a lot of like flashiness to it because of just the nature of Persona at this point. Versus like
from 3 on,
3 on. But like, you know, for SMT, for depending on the side games that they end up making, Metaphor is a little bit like mixed. It's a little leans heavily on the Persona side of things.
It's Persona graphical stylings with SMT battle system, I think. Is how I think of it.
Exactly. So I think like I would love them to kind of go back even from an SMT perspective. It's like SMT, was it 4? Was it 4 or 5?
The 3DS
5? The 5 for Switch.
5 for the Switch. And now the PS5 for
PS5 and stuff like that. It looks great and everything, but I wish it would be more less is more thought. Like make you feel like you're like in a world that is just like horrifying.
A
little bit.
I can see that. Like more, it's very like I think they do a good job at making it look like a wasteland, but you kind of see the same sand grains, right? Like for me, that doesn't really how I picture post-apocalyptic settings. So. And
I want to feel like anxious as I play this game sometimes. Like
like there's this really great palpable there's this palpable anxiety you feel in SMT3 when you're just like walking through an abandoned building and just like the way it's lit. And like you said, Emily, kind of horror adjacent. There's some of that, but also it just, even when it's not scary, it just feels so moody and very, I don't know. It's very good.
I think it's like the product of the time. Cause like the graphics were good, but they weren't so good to give you all the details. So like, if you look at even PS2 horror games, like, you know, if you look at Silent Hill and all those games on there, like in Resident Evil, like remakes even on the PS2 and stuff like that. So like, did they do Resident Evil? I forgot which ones they did. There was like enough there. Like the unknown is what scared you.
Yeah.
Like the things that you're not seeing, or like the things that you can't really make out as much, is what made it.
The imagination is so powerful.
Exactly.
And I feel like a lot of games nowadays don't use that to their advantage.
Yeah.
I know a lot of indie games are pretty good at especially in the indie horror scene. It's pretty big, but like
using a lot of those same tools that, you know, those developers used back then.
Exactly.
For sure.
Anyways, we're off topic.
Yeah. So SMT, you know, like the one thing I'll say about Nocturne is it doesn't have the strongest story. Like the vibe is kind of the story, and that kind of worked for me in a way that I was surprised it did. But if you wanted SMT3 with a story, they also did that. And that was Digital Devil Saga, the parts 1 and 2 duology. Like that is basically just the gameplay of SMT3, but with a surprisingly compelling story with characters that are really interesting. And like, it's an excellent sort of like sci-fi JRPG that, I mean, this is another one that people are talking like they need to remaster this. They did.
Yeah, it's the one I hear most often that people, we need to bring back.
I wish they would
bring it back. Bring it back.
Because we don't get a lot of sci-fi themes in JRPGs in general, and I want more.
Yeah, and this is like hard sci-fi. It's like hard edge, like feels like the movie Aliens sometimes, where it's like, you know, troopers. Like it's very, very hard sci-fi. It's great. I've I finished the first one. I started the second one. I've not finished the second one, but yeah, it's really great. Fantastic entry in SMT, which hopefully they'll do something more with.
Hopefully, so. And not just do another Persona 5 spinoff.
I hope we're done with that. Yeah. We haven't had one in a little bit, so I'm hoping.
If they wanted to
Tactica wasn't that long ago.
That's true.
If they wanted
and also
to
the mobile game.
A fighting, if they wanted to resurrect the Arena series and put some Persona 5 characters in Arena along with 3 and 4, I'd be okay with that. But I feel like at that point, we don't need any more. We're good.
We gotta end it. We gotta wrap it up.
Because those Arena games, they're like legit good fighting games, for sure. So wouldn't say no to more of that. But
how about it dancing all night?
I did not. Yes. I tried to play that. I tried to play that on the Vita. I did. Persona 4 Dancing All Night. And it was like 45 minutes and I hadn't played anything yet. It was just visual novel. And I was like, I can't. I need to. Come on. So I stopped and then I haven't gone back.
I see.
But you like visual novels more.
I know, I'm surprised.
I do, but like I wanted to play the dancing game.
You're in a mood for the dancing game. They gave you no dancing.
Branden just wants to dance. Novel. He's a dancing boy.
I just want to dance, you know? Throw my inhibitions to the wind and just dance.
You know what they should have done back on the PS2 era was do DDR, but like with JRPG stuff. They should have taken advantage of that.
I wonder, was there that
technically
in Japan, like that we just didn't get?
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not aware of it, but
there's
they should have really
like the
done
arcades.
Maybe
know.
It can act as a controller, kind of like makeshift it, maybe. But not by much.
But you mean like JRPG themed, like
dancing?
Dance.
You know how
like
they
DDR.
have like nowadays when they have their dance, whatever year it is, they have recent pop music hits.
Just all
they have K-pop in it now. So
Just Dance 2025 and
yeah.
Just like
still coming out on the Wii for 50 years later.
Just Dance like Sephiroth edition, and it's just like
should do that. Honestly,
that'd be great.
I never played any of those games, but DDR was my last dancing game. But
I never really got into DDR as much. I've tried it, but. Yeah,
we played. So in college, my friends lived together, and one of their roommates down the hall from me, he was like a big, like tough guy, but also a big nerd, and had a bunch of like husky friends, and they all got together one night and played DDR, and they were the dirtiest, smelliest boys. Okay, they were so dirty and smelly. And this is before they were sweating together in a closed room for 4 hours. They were already... you could smell them down the hall as they were playing Dance Dance Revolution for hours in a closed room.
I'm just picturing like just 4 really big guys too. Like you can imagine hearing the stomping.
The stomping. The girls lived on the 3rd floor. We were in the basement. They were complaining about the stomping from 2 floors up. And we ran into the room with rags over our faces, spraying Lysol in front of us and like running through the cloud of Lysol because we had to get something from the room. It was bad. It was bad.
So funny.
That's what every time Dance Dance Revolution comes up, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is that experience.
I just remember in college there was like a little, I don't know why, like in our student center area, we'd go sit down and eat. There was like a little arcades section right next to there. And they had a DDR machine.
Oh.
And like there was always like a handful of people that would go and they would show up in their like gym clothes with their towel. Yeah. And they would
workout.
Go so hard. Like it would just be
wow.
Like the ones that hold on to the back.
I've witnessed a few people who are definitely hardcore DDR players.
Like the people that hold on to the railing in the back behind you and it's just their legs just like flying across the thing and you're like
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, mad
really
respect. I'm not that good. Never got that good at it.
No.
Never did.
I was more into like Guitar Hero and Rock Band at the time.
Hero. Yeah. I didn't play it on PS2. I know we're talking about PS2. I didn't play it until PS3.
I played a lot of it on the PS2.
Yeah.
I had a friend who like really liked to use just the PS2 controller for it for some reason.
Oh,
don't know.
I want the high score.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be more precise.
Yeah.
No.
But to move on, I guess. Yeah.
Tangent over.
Yes.
What other games do we want to talk about?
Emily, is there anything you want to drop?
So as I mentioned, I had limited PS2 JRPGs. The other big one that I played was Dark Cloud. And I think we rented it, or maybe we owned it, but then somehow it got in the GameStop pile to resell after a while. So I don't have a copy of it anymore, sadly. Something I want to get back at some point. But I really enjoyed it. At that time, I didn't play any of the 3D Zeldas. And so I didn't have that to compare it to, because a lot of people like to compare Ocarina of Time with Dark Cloud. But I really liked the idea of you have these weapons, and there was an action RPG, and you had to make sure you had all the right supplies and repair things, because this was when they had weapons that would break on you. And so that was interesting as a kid, trying to go around that. And I also really liked the town building, which was surprising, because at that time I only played like The Sims and like computer kind of simulation type games. So it was interesting to see that on a console in a different form.
Yeah.
And you would go into like dungeons and find the different buildings or whatever and be able to bring them out. And,
blueprints and stuff. I forget what they're called.
Yeah. I played it. It was, I think I rented it. I'm pretty sure I didn't own it as a kid, but I definitely rented it. And I enjoyed it. It was like, I feel like it was an earlier game too, right? On the PS2?
It was.
Yeah. So like, starved for JRPGs in general. And like, here's one that's, I at the time, I don't think I would have considered action RPGs the same thing as like, a JRPG. I do now, but I still had a good time with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I had no expectations, because again, I think at that time I didn't know what a JRPG was. I don't know. I just enjoyed games that looked cool and had an interesting narrative.
I don't know if the term was even in use back then, except as like a derogatory.
Maybe
thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember what I used to say. How I used to describe these games.
I would just say RPG. I know.
Yeah, I would say RPG, but I can't remember if I was saying JRPG at the time. Like,
I'm such a almost positive I didn't. Yeah,
I think I did.
Yeah, I really like. I played
like
that
ones
game.
that were obviously like Japanese influenced. I'd be like, oh, it's very Japanesey. Like when I saw what Persona 3 was, like wacky Japanese.
Wacky Japanese.
That's about it.
I love it. I played Dark Cloud. I think I enjoyed that game. I liked Dark Cloud 2 more, just because you can make robots.
Make robots. Yeah.
There was more of a story in Dark Cloud 2.
There was
the first one didn't have as much of a story, really, and they had more interesting mechanics, and it was interesting how they dealt with time. Right, so you could do a little bit of time traveling.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Because
I have not played it yet.
Because I think like Dark Cloud 2 is not called Dark Cloud 2 anywhere else. It's called Dark Cloud.
Except North America.
Chronicles.
It's Dark Chronicles.
Yeah. Emily, were we just talking about this recently?
I feel like we were talking about it.
We talked about it on, I think, an after show, and I looked it up.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. I was like, why does this seem so familiar?
Deja vu.
Deja vu.
Dark Chronicle.
Dark Chronicles. Yeah, those are fun games. I think it's just like the amount of stuff that you can do in them was the cool part about it. Like as a kid, you're like, you can build all these things, you can go around. It was just like endless, like fun.
It seemed like so much like freedom for me when I was playing it as a kid, because at that time I didn't really have anything else to like compare it to. But I liked, how you go in dungeons and you just explore and you find stuff to bring back with you. So I like that kind of loop.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that one, thankfully, is available on modern systems because they ported it over to the PlayStation Network. So you can play it on PS4 or PS5.
Oh, is the first one on modern?
Yep, both of them are on there.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I knew 2 was. Interesting. Okay, cool.
And it's relatively cheap, too, to purchase if you want to play it.
I've been wanting to pick up the physicals. So that's on my list.
They're not very expensive. I think the same thing with like $30 to $50 around. I don't remember.
Not bad.
Combined, like they're both cheap. You can get both for like maybe the first game you could get under 20, second game in the 35 price.
Okay, which is not bad at all. And there's a lot of fun to be had.
It's pretty good considering what's on the PS2.
I know. There's some
JRPGs.
games, we could talk about that are very expensive.
Haunting Ground is the gem of my PS2 collection, just because it's so expensive.
Yeah, that's a crazy game that you own.
Yeah, although it is a very good game though too. Just want to say, and we're not really talking about horror games, but Haunting Ground is a surprisingly very good game. Like, I don't know how they did it. It's a technological marvel. Like, once the game loads, once it loads up, there's no more loading. You walk through this giant castle, and you open a door, and any other survival horror game, there'd be a loading screen, and then you'd be in the next room. No, it's all open. You can go anywhere, and that kind of makes the whole conceit of it, where you're like hiding from these people that are stalking you. It's like you can't just go to a loading screen and then you got away. It's like you need to actually get away. So it's pretty
more
pretty
immersive
intense.
for sure.
Yeah, pretty intense.
That is like incredible that they were able to do that.
Yeah, it boggles the mind how they were able to, and it looks really good too. Like for a PlayStation 2 game, it looks really good, and they've streamed it from memory somehow. So
that's wild.
Crazy.
I know. Let's see. Some more things we can talk about. I mean, there's a lot of series. Like across, I know Suikoden just released the remasters. So there's like Suikoden 3, 4, and 5, and Tactics on the PS2. I mean, granted, we were talking about earlier Suikoden 3, which I can actually show this, I guess.
Bust that bad boy out.
Bring that up. Suikoden 3. I do not have 4 and 5.
I wonder if we'll see remasters of those.
I think
the next few years.
It's sounding more optimistic. I just saw an interview with one of the leads over at Konami there, and they're seeming optimistic about it reviving.
Yeah. That's good. Konami's been pretty good with remasters recently.
Yes.
So hopefully they'll roll out some more.
They've been doing a lot of those, and as long as Suikoden, this remaster current one, sells well, I think they'll find a reason to justify 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I think, at least in Japan, I think it's been doing well, right? Yeah. And then they've announced the new anime and a mobile game. So they're trying to, I think, revive it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They were talking about wanting to bring the mobile game to other platforms as well. So if you are anti-mobile, there's potential that we may see it on, and it looks beautiful. Like, have you seen the trailer for the mobile game? Like, it actually looks really good. And they said that the gacha elements, there's no gacha involved for the 108 stars. So that's nice. You can do gacha for if you want to get characters from other games in your group, or to speed up. You can the microtransactions to speed up your base building or something like you see in a lot of other games. But yeah, so I was happy to see that it's not the actual characters you want aren't gotcha'd. So that's good. That's good. But yeah, I'm going to, as much as I'm not a mobile game guy, I'm still going to download that and play it because I just want them to bring this back. Yeah. I just want to bring the series back, guys. It's so good.
I would love to see a new Suikoden game. So anything I can get, anything I can do to promote that. Yeah. I'll just do it at this point.
I'll help any way that I can, Konami.
I will download that app.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
But Suikoden 3, I think, is an interesting one. I think that deserves a remaster as well. I think Brandon and I were talking about this as we were loading this up and everything. Is that it is one of those games that is a bit rough around the edges now that you look at it, because it was I don't know when did it come out on the PS2 life cycle? I'm trying to. I want to
say it was 2002 or 3.
Yes, it's 2002. So this is This
Kingdom Hearts.
Pretty early,
in the first year or two of the PS2. I think it's probably the second year of the PS2. I think it came out in 2001, right?
Over here.
Yeah.
Well, no, it came out in 2000.
Yeah.
Came out in 2000.
Was it 2000? Okay.
Yeah. That's why it's the 25th anniversary.
It's the early years, and
makes sense.
And it's their first 3D Suikoden game. And so I do love if you look at the art design for just the art of the game, of the characters. They're all really well designed and really cool characters. And I love the idea of being able to choose which character you want to play with at first, and then go in along those lines.
go through their stories and
going
then
through their stories
until they all intersect. Yeah.
I thought that was a really fun way to kind of like give you an idea of like all the different things that are happening and all the different groups that are doing things. It was a smart way to tell the story, I think, at the time, and it was a little bit of a change up from the typical Suikoden style that I think did well, better than some other, like let's say, 4 was the one.
4 is kind of, I think, the ugly
the
duckling.
The 4 is the one that was like, but like they made some good choices. This is the one that like I think not as many people talk about in the Suikoden world.
Yeah,
it's usually like 1 and 2, and
considered not as good. Is it 4 or 5?
4 is the one that's considered not as good, I think.
5 brings it back, but it was already kind of like teetering. The reception of Suikoden was already kind of hitting that wall.
Yeah,
after 4,
they just weren't. Yeah, they weren't ready for the HD era. There was that DS entry as well. Which had a weird name. I don't think that name did it any favors. Suikoden is already kind of a weird name for Western people, but
it is.
Throwing Seer Kreis or something on there as the subtitle. It's you're just making up nonsense now, aren't you?
But it was a very funky name.
Yeah. But yeah, Suikoden 3 I loved it. I loved it. I was so into it. It does not, like we were saying at the beginning before we started recording, I don't think it holds up visually today in terms of like how it's presented. The animation is very, like, I would almost say amateurish. Like it's just not, it doesn't look great. It's very stiff.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to remake it, I think it would have a better chance. Just a HD port.
Yeah.
I don't know I think people would look at it and be like, it still looks pretty jank. And I feel like they added more animations to the Suikoden remasters 1 and 2.
True.
Like you can go diagonal now, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't go diagonal in the original. I'm pretty sure.
That's true. I don't think you could.
No.
I don't remember that.
So they created new like pixel animation for the characters to move diagonal. I was like, cool. I did not expect that. So do that sort of thing, beef up the animations in 3, and I think that's probably all you need to do. HDify it.
Honestly, because the story's there, the battle system's still perfectly fine. Like everything around it is great. It needs a bit of love from an aesthetic and like motion graphical standpoint. Outside of that,
although I do worry. It took them how long to put out Suikoden 1 and 2? They worked on it for like 5 years.
They kept pushing it back.
Yeah, and and it looks great. Harder. It looks great, but like 3 is, I feel like, a bigger undertaking than even 1 and 2 were. So it's like,
I agree.
Is it going to take 10 years for them to come?
And unfortunately, I don't think promos for this latest remaster has been that great.
No,
I don't think there's been as much of a welcoming back of Suikoden than I think maybe it needs.
Oh,
like, I don't know. I just feel like it's getting a little bit pushed under the rug compared to some other titles that are coming out, at least in the JRPG space.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, well,
because I feel like there's more people excited for the Lunar, remasters in comparison. I don't speak for everyone, of course, but just the general hype I've been seeing is more for Lunar than Suikoden 1 and 2.
Lunar fans are loud. They're extremely loud.
That's probably why, maybe.
They're a product of those 90s, working design style.
Victor Ireland's soldiers. Well,
exactly.
they don't want to buy it because they're mad that
they're not going to have that experience,
they're not
right?
going to have that experience. It's a whole.
Does Victor Ireland have soldiers now? I wonder if people are still like standing Victor Ireland.
I mean, I imagine
there must be someone. There's always someone.
Yeah.
But I hope that it at least sells it well enough that they work on this. But yeah, I do agree that or
at least Japan will help beef it up a bit more.
With how hard it was for them to get through Suikoden 1 and 2, 3 is going to be a tough one. So
I have to imagine / hope that they didn't have the biggest team in the world working on Suikoden 1 and 2. So even though it took a while, I'm hoping that it didn't cost them an immense amount of money. They definitely didn't pour 5 years of full development cost into remastering Suikoden.
Yeah.
Maybe they wanted to time it with, the new anime and some other things.
Sure. If they're planning a whole franchise revival, they pace themselves a little bit. Yeah. I'm excited about that anime. Suikoden 2 is the one that you would want to do as a show. So
I hope they do a good job with it,
looking forward to that.
Was it Legend of Mana? They did anime, and that was like.
Did they? I didn't realize they did an anime on that one.
There was an anime for Legend of Mana that I think it's fine, but it didn't get like as much like fanfare as probably would have liked for a JRPG.
Yeah.
Like
JRPG animes are weird. Like I know the Nier Automata one, I don't think made that much of a splash.
Yeah, well, because there's so much they have to cut out.
Yeah.
Probably. Well, and it's also telling a slightly different story, I think, than the game.
Yeah.
I'm intending to go back and watch it because I really love Nier Automata, but I have not watched the show yet.
And the Persona anime, I don't know how well those did.
I loved the Persona 4 anime. Loved
the 4 was actually pretty good. Like I think it did a good job.
It followed the story really well and fleshed out the characters in interesting ways, gave a personality to the main character. I loved 4. 5, I was kind of meh on a little bit, but 4 I loved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. PlayStation 2 though. Good system. Fun system.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're seeing so many of those games being brought to more modern consoles, so we could actually play them. I know we mentioned a couple that have already been ported over, or at least remastered.
Yeah.
Any other ones that you guys maybe wanted to highlight that have had that?
These games need remastering.
It's necessary. I think at this point we need it.
Xenosaga, man. It's I would be curious how they would approach it if they were going to bring them to like a modern audience. We're maybe more open to games like that now than we were back then. I know at the time it was like crazy that some of the cutscenes were like 30 minutes long,
Yeah.
And it hadn't really been done before. And then you get, Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PlayStation 3, where like I think the longest cutscene there is 80 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like feature-length movie.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Kojima.
So yeah,
Can you save in between it or no?
I think so. I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah. They give you some break points in there, but it's like it's just like crazy long stuff.
Yeah. I'm just curious because it'll be Bandai Namco who would publish it. I know they did that for the .hack.gu system.
Yeah.
They had a little compilation of all the games and just did a simple port. So that's one route they could do, but it'd be nice if they did something a little bit more special to it. Well, especially with like what we're getting with Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yeah.
Having more of an HD port and extra story bits.
Well, and that's so correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that GU, the remaster, added an episode.
Epilogue.
Because there were 3 originally.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It adds an ending.
I haven't played
so
it.
like it doesn't like the actual games never really ended like completely. So they
says
adds
it
an
has
epilogue.
terminal disc footage in one game. I don't know what that means.
I don't know. I don't remember what that was. But I know it adds an epilogue.
Like an epilogue chapter, right?
An epilogue chapter that you play through that kind of helps.
Yeah.
And
they're doing
series.
that. Obviously doing that in Xenoblade X as well.
Yes.
Taking that cliffhanger and like hopefully just resolving it or
or saying, hey, there's going to be another game.
There's going to be another one.
If we were ever to get a remaster or redo of Xenosaga, I think that's going to be something that's going to involve Tetsuya Takahashi in the mix of it, because like his relationship, I think now like since he's like partnered with Bandai Namco a lot for Xenoblade 2 and 3 and for like has received like they let him use that IP within those games. And a lot of the stuff that he's been doing for Xenoblade in general harkens to Xenosaga as a whole, like what he's trying to tell with Xenosaga and bridging those kind of series together. And so there's going to be ways that he's going to have to kind of maybe rewrite or retcon a few things probably across Xenosaga and then add a little bit more features to make it more in tune. And also if he can go back and just redo 2, that would be great as well. I get
stuck at 2 every time I try to replay this series. I get stuck at 2. I'm like, ugh.
I just want him to just take away that battle system for me, please.
Yeah, change the battle system.
It just...
It's not good.
It's like you're fighting for your life every battle.
Yeah.
Like it is
scraping by.
Yeah. Like I'm being killed by like the smallest of like terrible. I mean, granted, I was like young at the time. So like, I don't know. I need to replay it again and see if it's, I mean, I did
a bunch of grinding the last time I played it.
Yeah.
I did some grinding right up front and got super over leveled. So it wasn't hard anymore, but it was also not super fun. Like I feel like they made some wrong moves in that with that game.
Yeah. But he was also not a part of that game.
He also didn't, yeah. So I would love him to be more involved in it. The other thing that I think is encouraging is like Bandai Namco has a great relationship with Nintendo. Like, didn't they develop Smash Brothers? Aren't they the developers of Smash Brothers Ultimate? Am I wrong about that?
I think so. I think you're right.
I think they helped. I don't know if they're the token developer. We need to fact check this.
I'm going to fact check before somebody gets on my case. Probably should fact check that 80-minute cutscene thing too, because chances are I'm probably off base on that. But I know they're really long. Developed by Bandai Namco Studios and Sora Limited.
Okay. Yeah. And they also worked on ARMS, which was one of the and Mario Kart as well. Like they've done a lot of like work with Nintendo in general. So I can see this being like it's gonna a Nintendo exclusive. Because
so
you can't play Xenosaga and this Xenoblade outside of this. So
right. Yeah, so Bandai Namco and Sora Limited, I guess, is just Sakurai's like that's him.
Yeah, that's his thing.
And his team or whatever. So they worked together on it. But yeah, so I mean, they have a good relationship. They work closely together already. So let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think this is the time to do anything Xeno related. I mean, there's more interest than ever.
If they're going to do it, it's got to be in the next year. Like, because like as they lead into whatever the next Xenoblade game is, there's like, based off of what they've already done with the story, like it would be beneficial for people to know the story of Cosmos and things like that. If they're going to reference anything like that,
because they reached the logical conclusion of the Xenoblade trilogy story.
So that's done.
And they introduced that element at the end of, sorry for spoilers, I guess, but like they introduced the element of the connective tissue between Xenosaga and Xenoblade at the end of that whole experience. And to me, that says that like if they're going to continue this, then Xenosaga becomes very important to understanding where it goes next. So, yeah, you're right. This is the time to do it. And I would expect if they were that we would hear an announcement at least within the next year. I don't know that I would expect it out in 2025 , but like
probably not.
Unless it's just
unless they've been working on it.
Unless they've been working on it for a long time.
2026.
Like
but 2026 makes sense to me.
Takahashi holds things very close. Like they don't.
He does. Yeah.
He does not like hint at anything. So
look at how they dropped Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at a direct, like out of left field and. Yeah. I think they pushed it earlier, like release date wise.
Came out earlier than they even said it would.
All right. Yeah. I'm gonna put it out there.
Put it out there.
The next direct for the Switch, like the next big direct for Switch 2, where it actually announces games, which is I think they're gonna announce games in that one, right? The April.
They might. I imagine they would. They did They did in the original Switch announcement video.
So they're gonna have some sort of. Definitely Xeno related.
I think so.
Whether that's going to be, I want to say it's Xenosaga. Let's throw it out there. I want to put it
Xenoblade 2 was part of the original Switch announcement thing, so it, wouldn't surprise me at all to have something Xeno. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
I want to put it into the world, even if it's not going to happen. I want to wish it.
I love it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
But I don't know. Coming off of because Xenoblade Chronicles X HD or Definitive Edition will have released by then.
Exactly.
I don't know if they want to steal its thunder by announcing another Xeno so close.
Well,
but
it might hype people up even
it might
more
boost
to
sales,
get that one.
It could. It's hard to say.
It'd be different if it was a remaster of that same game. It's like that would definitely steal the wind out of the sales of that release.
Yeah.
But
I don't see that happening.
Because even Xenoblade Chronicles X has like things that are related to Xenosaga. So like there's so much out there like that is just kind of people waiting to see what happens. Like what is the plan? And so like I just want it.
We're not asking for a lot. Just remake a super lengthy trilogy of JRPGs for us.
Yeah.
And then continue to make more games from that point forward, please. That's all. We're not asking for a lot.
I'm not being unreasonable here.
No, no. We're good people. We have good ideas, and we want you to do them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's a good place to end our discussion for now. Because
there's so many PS2 games we did not cover.
We could go on.
Which be another whole episode, I think.
We could go on. And we will talk more about the PlayStation 2. Like I said, we want to do this monthly. We want to highlight a particular console and talk about the best games, the games that we love, the games that we missed and regret missing. So we want to do this regularly. Eventually, we're going to run out of consoles, and we're going to revisit PlayStation 2 with some new games. So, look forward to that.
So in the meantime, everyone should just tell us what their favorite or their highlights were.
Please.
Yeah.
Maybe spark a memory of ones that we wanted to maybe cover in the future.
Please. I have a pretty decent PlayStation 2 JRPG collection, but I don't have everything, and I would like to know games that I should get.
Same. I want to build mine more. I just have a few from my childhood, and I'm hoping to add to it next month, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll be at the convention next month, so getting more examples of things that we need to spend money on and spend too much money on at a con.
We just know what to keep our eyes out for.
Exactly. Please. I need to go for broke. All right, that's the goal.
I'm selling some games to fund my my purchases there, and I just sold a game overnight for $375. So. Oof. The budget is off.
Which one is that one?
It's a good start.
Life is Strange 2.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Not bad. So, and for anyone who wants to know, we're going to be at Midwest Gaming Classic up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So if you're happening
in early April
there, early April,
first
weekend of April. If you guys happen to be there, come find us. We'll be doing a panel. Say hello. Whatever,
Yeah.
We'll be walking around. So
come on by. What games? So I have some games that I picked up. I want to talk about just real quick. I don't want to take too much more of your time. Speaking of Suikoden, picked up Suikoden, the remasters. It's called Gate Rune and Dunan Unification Wars. I don't love that title. It does not roll off the tongue.
It doesn't.
But it doesn't.
I'm assuming it's about the story. No?
It is. Yeah.
It is.
Okay. It does reference something at least.
Yeah. It is accurate. I just don't love how it sounds coming out of my mouth. No. But it's great. It's fantastic. I'm only like 4 or 5 hours into Suikoden 1 because mine came a little bit later. I didn't get it on release day. So it's just like really good. Like they did such a good job of bringing this to modern consoles and like not really changing much, but making it feel much better. Like I mentioned, the controls, like you can run diagonal. Like it seems like a little thing, but like, man, it really makes a big difference in terms of playability. So really enjoying that so far.
You like it on that system?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And then I also picked up recently Moon and Pentiment for the Switch. I think it Video Games Plus had a reprint or I don't know. They had restock or whatever of those two. And Pentiment, I don't know a ton about. I know you've talked about it, Emily.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's basically like a medieval story that you get sucked into, and it's just so stylishly interesting how they weave their narrative.
Yeah. And it's by Obsidian, which I don't think I knew until very recently. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
It's got the Obsidian humor, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen. I've not played it either. I know everybody talks how, like, in the Discord, they were talking about how awesome it is, and everyone should play it.
So I am taking step one to remedying the fact that I haven't played it by getting it. And then Moon, Moon is interesting. It's kind of, they call it the anti-RPG. It's, I don't know if it's like, you don't want to call it a parody of JRPGs, but it's like, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
But I believe it was localized by Tim Rogers, who's a fantastic writer, presenter in like video games in general. Like he used to work for Kotaku, and he's since like he has his own YouTube channel, which I don't know if he's still doing that, but he's great. And he's super fluent. He used to work for what's his name, Grasshopper Studios. He used to work in Japan.
Yeah,
with Suda51, I think.
Yeah, like he lived and worked in Japan, so like
so he was in game development in Japan. So he was very good. He has like a photographic memory. Like he's the sort of person that literally can't forget anything. So he remembers like every moment of his life since he became a conscious being. So like from, I think he said age 3, the first memory was being in the grocery store.
How does it fit in there?
I don't know. I don't understand the brain. It's a little bit
sounds so overwhelming to me.
Yeah. I would be bummed. Like I have a bad memory and I regret not having as good of a memory as I'd like to have. I do not want a memory that is that good. Like there are things that
that sounds like a curse at that point.
Yeah, that's too much.
But he has a great sense of humor, and
he's very funny. Yeah, I like him. Very dry.
I like his very dry, very sarcastic, which is right up my alley. So check out his stuff.
Yeah, and if Senpai could notice me, that'd be great because I've been an admirer of his work for a long time.
If we can get him on here, we should.
I'd love to get him on.
I would
Senpai,
love to get
notice
him on.
me. Notice me.
Oh my God,
that'd be great.
So if you're watching this, Tim Rogers,
Tim, I hope you are, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
What you got, Dalla?
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Okay, so this is back like I don't know. I've got this a while ago, back when Branden and I went out game shopping, but I don't think I've shown it off anything about that.
I don't think you did.
I'll start off with something that is of the time, and that is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. So Breath of Fire 4. 5. Yes. Yeah. 5. Sorry. This game, I know I've been talking about this a lot lately, just in my own personal time, is that it's something I really want to revisit because it's just one of those games that was hated.
Yeah.
Hated, and it killed the series. But like it also has a lot of, let's say, roguelite mechanics that weren't popular at the time.
Yeah.
And so with the resurgence of like roguelites being popular and things like that, and me playing more roguelites as of late, like not like just in general in this like modern era, I'm wondering if I play it now with that context and this new view of it, would it be better to me? So like just
being more comfortable with the idea of having to restart and
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm
it's a different world now.
Yeah. So like I know it's going to be probably a little clunky in the sense of like restarting is probably a long process. Because it's a JRPG, it's not like something you can just like jump into like Hades that you just like fly back into it. But I think it'd be interesting to kind of see how I take that. So that's on my list. Probably, I might jump it up pretty.
Let me say this. I'm going to put this out there. If and when you do start playing it, let me know.
Yeah.
I might want to parallel play it with you because I've been feeling the same way. Like I want to give it another shot. It would be interesting to have somebody to talk about it with while experiencing it. So let me know if you do. No pressure.
We should collab in the video.
We should collab on a video. We could do something with it. Yeah. That could be fun. So
yeah, I agree. Let's do that. So we'll plan ahead. Another one is Crimson Sea for the Xbox. So I know we don't talk about Xbox a lot, but this has been on my list of games to grab for the Xbox because it's just nostalgic for me. I remember playing this back in the day. My friend had it, and I just thought it was the most fun. But it's basically, what if Dynasty Warriors in space? So it's made by Koei, and it's this like whole sci-fi adventure. But this one is a little weird because it has tank controls. So I don't know how much I'm gonna like playing. Like I remember enjoying it, but I'm in this day and age where I'm not as much of a fan of tank controls as most people, I guess, are. I wonder if I'll still like it, but it's one of those games that I've been wanting to pick up because it's just a fun little like sci-fi romp that you don't get a lot of.
Love a good romp.
One day I'll figure out. I have an Xbox, but I just have I haven't turned it on in a very long time, so I don't know. Maybe it still works.
If it still works.
Yeah.
I know they have a lot of problems with leaky. What do you call? I think part of their PSU, the power section of the Xbox leaks a little bit from the what do you call? The little pieces on the motherboard. Today's not a day where I remember words, so I'm just going to let everybody know that.
No help.
No worries.
Yes.
No
so
worries.
either way, to do that, you have to, basically go in there, check to see if anything's leaking. If it's leaking, hopefully it hasn't broken anything, because that stuff is acid and it's going to break your motherboard. But you'd have to replace it, so that includes like desoldering and soldering and stuff like that. So it's not.
Could you play it on the 360?
I don't think this is backwards compatible.
Not one of the back compat games.
Yeah, because it's not very like popular game. Like it didn't. Okay. It was very like, I don't know. It did not make waves, I guess. So I don't think it ever made it as a part of that program, which is why I wanted to grab it physically, so that way I could play it one day if I chose to. But yeah, those are two games I picked up. Still playing through Daybreak.
Oh yeah, Daybreak.
Yeah. So that's what's going on in my life.
I feel ya. Yeah, no pickups for me, sadly. I've been still on my little low buy. But there are some exciting releases that I'm looking forward to end of this month. Xenoblade Chronicles X and Telia Yumia, getting those physically.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
I'm excited.
So very much looking forward to that. And in terms of playing, I think Branden and I both got to experience the demo for Expedition 33, Clair Obscur game.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, very good.
Another highly anticipated game now.
How did you like it, Emily? I didn't.
I haven't finished the demo. I started it up, but it's just so pretty. I think this is going to be maybe a game that really gets people interested in turn-based RPGs again. That's not the same thing as Baldur's Gate 3, for example.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really promising because the aesthetics, I think, are universally enjoyed. Whereas, with a lot of JRPGs, a lot of it leans more towards anime, which people who aren't in that scene, just, initially get turned off by.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping it's going to be a nice bridge to maybe more people being interested in JRPGs and just in general. Mm-hmm. And I think it has the potential to do that. And I'm just curious, though, how, the demo is 3 to 4 hours. And so the game, I think itself is around 25, 30 hours total.
30. Yep.
So I'm hoping it will just be, the entire game's just going to be high highs. There's not going to be some weird, thing that falls off the end. Which I don't think it will be with that time frame, but I also hope it's not too rushed. Because we're not used to games, right, of that caliber, that's that length.
And I hope that it does well enough that it shows the viability for that prestige level of a game to be that length. Because, there are great JRPGs that are 80 hours, but I feel like you could cut that time in half just for the core experience and take a lot of the fluff and the padding out of it, and have a much
probably be more universally accepted, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, one of the reasons why they don't play JRPGs is the length.
Right. Yeah. It's just
which is something. It is, but then you have on the other side a lot of JRPG players. They think more is better.
Right.
So it's hard to find that balance.
It's this game's 80 to 100 hours. There's 20 hours of compelling story and 20 hours of interesting gameplay, and then the rest of it is just, doing chores basically. And that's it's longer, but it's not. Anyway, so I hope that it is successful to show that that's viable. Because it's just great. Let's
and they're going all out.
I watched
they have so much promo for this, and they have that movie deal now.
They're making a movie.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then Branden, I watched your video on it, and I'm I'm just so hyped for this. It looks good. So good, and I'm all for a very straightforward, self-contained story that is quick to get through. Because I think, especially games like this that are supposed to be impactful, and looking at the story of this game, you don't want that filler. You want to go through. It's an emotional journey for these people. So I like that they're just going straight through and telling the story that needs to happen.
You know what I also like? I know we're running really long here, but what I also like is I like that the demo is just a chunk of the game somewhere in the middle, and it's not the first 3 hours of the game.
Yeah.
I feel when developers or publishers put out demos that are the first 3 hours and you can carry over your save, they are making that demo for people that are already excited about the game. I don't think the first 3 hours of a JRPG are always the most compelling parts of the game. The thing that's going to get an audience that isn't already bought in. That's why I don't play demos.
Sometimes they do that with the design in mind, knowing that if they are going to release a demo, they need to make the hook exciting in the beginning.
And hopefully they do, right? But because if they don't, then it's like, well, the people that are already excited about the game, sure, I get to play the first few hours a bit early, great. But it's not necessarily going to win you a bunch of new potential purchasers. So
that's true.
I really like the way that they were like, hey, let's take this vertical slice of the game that's several hours in. It's going to highlight probably more than the first 3 hours of the game are going to be able to highlight for people. So
yeah, it's interesting too in regards to game design. I've been noticing a lot more games, they kind of put you in the middle to experience something, like in the first scene of the game, so that you get maybe more of the combat elements that you would eventually build up to. Yeah. And it's more like a look forward, like foreshadowing.
Yep.
And I think that's a smart design, especially if they want to do a demo, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
In the first hour or something of the game.
In media res is the style, and I love it. I love stories that start that way. Very much.
Yeah,
yes, I agree.
I'm torn. Like sometimes I think it's done well. Sometimes, like you're showing me too much of what to expect, you know. And then when you go backwards, you're like, okay, now I have none of these powers. You know,
that's true.
You just feel so handicapped at that point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So,
anyways. Yes.
Hopefully you all enjoyed this extra long episode that I don't think we intended to be.
No, there's so much to talk about the PS2, and as we mentioned, we barely scratched the surface. Really,
we did. Yeah, I have a stack of games here, and I think I talked about 4 of them. So didn't even get to everything.
I'm wondering though if those who in our audience are interested, we could maybe make our next, when we do this next month for our console highlight, if we wanted to continue with the PS2 or if we should maybe switch off to another console. Like I would be good either way, honestly.
Yeah, let us know in the
comments or in the Discord if you're a member. Let us know what you would prefer, continue with PS2 or move on to other pastures. Yeah. We are open to doing it either way. So
sounds good.
Thank you all once again for watching or listening or however you are consuming this show. We really appreciate it. I would just ask that if you are watching on YouTube, that you consider, liking and subscribing and everything. It really helps the channel out a lot. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member, joining the Discord, getting bonus videos, that is an option for you as well. We really appreciate the members that we have. And if you would consider joining as a member, we would be very grateful. I guess if you are currently a Pursuer member, stick around for the after show. We're going to dive into that here shortly. And thanks for everything, everybody.
Yeah.
Until next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.